Welcome to this edition of Simsbury Woman. I'm Shannon Nall. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by a community leader and a social media consultant, Carolyn Clement. She's joining us on the Simsbury Woman for some enlightenment about social media. Now, this has been sort of the talk lately, social media, how it in fact impacts our children, how it kind of changes the world in which we live, how it can change messaging from a marketing perspective. And I really want to touch on all of that today. So thank you so much for being here.
Great, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. So let's start kind of at the basics.
Okay.
So when we were talking about social media, what are we talking about? What are our biggest social media tools?
Well, I think the most predominant, obviously, is Facebook. I think there are about 1.4 billion people on Facebook, and that's definitely the most powerful driver of social media worldwide, and certainly we see in Simsbury. Twitter is big, Instagram. The thing about social media is that it's so constantly evolving that what we talk about today, 2 months from now, there might be something else that's just as big or just as up and coming.
Right.
So, and that's the beauty of it too, the excitement of it, is that there are always new tools coming along and new things to explore.
Well, that's kind of what I want to talk about, because I think this is a broad topic. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what are the pros and the cons of social media. We don't have to get into all of them, but say, let's take Facebook. How is that beneficial to you and I?
Well, I love Facebook.
I do too.
Excellent. I know. I'm friends with you on Facebook, so I enjoy that. Facebook is such a great way to connect with friends and family, both far away and nearby. When I first started using it, I used it mostly to connect with family who lived out in the Great Plains and friends from high school and college. And then I started to see how useful it was for connecting with local friends who I care for very deeply, but don't see that often because we're very busy. And so with Facebook, you can get these snippets of connection and community building in just a fairly short time spent every day that otherwise you would never have access to.
Right.
And what I love about that, what I love about social media is that it's the ability to really build community, to support relationships. It provides a platform for people to encourage each other and to really be a part of each other's lives.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's so popular. That's why people love it, because we're driven to be in a community, to have relationships, and to share each other's lives. So.
Right, and I would agree with that as well. And I think from a messaging perspective, or if you have something that you really want people to understand or be a part of, I think Facebook can be really a tool and a resource. So let's talk a little bit about the cons. What are some of the bad things besides maybe Candy Crush and and the games?
Well, I don't play the games.
I don't either.
So that's not an issue for me. Certainly, one of the cons of social media is that it excludes those who aren't using it.
True.
So if you have people that are not using social media, they tend to feel that they feel excluded. They see people holding their phones or on their devices, and they think, look at that person who's always on their device. They're interacting with technology. They're not having a real relationship with me. And so that's a problem. I mean, the truth is that the device is the tool for having relationships and having those connections. So, but not everyone is using that tool, so they do get excluded from that.
Right.
We also see that, I hear of that from teachers. They talk about, children are excluded from using social media, and when their parents are on it, you can see some pretty flagrant ignoring of opportunities for parent-child interaction, because the child can't access the parent through social media.
Right. Very good point.
So there are those cons. For kids, young kids in particularly, there are some worrisome problems with social media, mostly centered around bullying, around loss of privacy, around brand management, which begins when you first appear on your digital footprint.
Yes.
You start to manage your lifelong brand, which is something new.
Yes.
And also there's, predatory danger.
Right.
It's a small risk, but it is out there for kids.
Now, children must be 13 to
Right,
be on
right.
Facebook.
Yes.
And I know that is not always an adhered to policy, dependent on a parent's choice. And there's really, that is what it is. But I wonder, and there's been talk about the impact of kids either being on social media too young or utilizing social media in a non-productive way for bullying or for harassing or for whatever inappropriate behavior they can. I'm not saying all kids are going to do this, but it happens.
Yeah.
So how does that happen, and what's the kind of the psychology around that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pretty strong believer that kids should not be using social media before they're 13. And, the Children's Online Protection and Privacy Act states that no social media apps should be used by anyone under the age of 13. So any child who has signed up for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever they're using, has essentially misrepresented themselves and either given a false birth date or clicked the OK that says, I affirm that I am over the age of 13 and am able to use this. So that means they're starting their relationship with social media by misrepresenting themselves, which, I think is a problem. So putting that aside, kids don't have great judgment. I know you're a mother,
Right.
so you know this.
Right, yes.
I'm
not shocked.
The whole, frontal cortex doesn't develop until they're much older. Their judgment is not great. And it gets better as they get older. So a 14-year-old is better usually than a 13-year-old at social media. A 13-year-old is definitely better than an 11-year-old at using social media. So they do grow into understanding that, as I say, anything you post online, you have to consider that it will be available possibly to the whole world forever.
Right.
And that doesn't resonate with an 11 and 12-year-old at all.
Right.
A 14-year-old, they understand that and they start to be more careful, mostly because by that time, maybe their grandma has seen something that they've posted on Twitter.
Right.
And so they do understand that people are watching. But the younger kids aren't quite getting that, and they don't get that. So that's why I really advocate to keep your kids off social media till they're 13.
Right.
And as a parent, I think we're empowered to do that if we choose to.
Right. I would agree with that. That's an interesting point too. Whenever you're posting on Facebook or on social media, you should assume that your grandmother can see it.
Right.
So that hopefully will make things a little bit more appropriate. But that's a good measuring point.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about Facebook. I know the other popular items or popular social media for kids is Instagram is very popular. I don't really get it. I don't understand the distinction between that and Twitter necessarily, but enlighten me and all of us.
So Instagram is a visual image social media application. So the only things that you can post on Instagram are images.
Okay. No words.
And you can add words in the comment section, and you can post images of words.
Oh.
So for example, if you see on Facebook, you have memes that are a picture with words on them.
Right.
So those can also be posted on Instagram. So
Got
it would be a word text-based image.
Okay.
And then also the description of the image can be posted in the comment section underneath that. But it's all images.
Wow.
And in my opinion, social media is moving toward two directions, and that is visual imagery and also more closed messaging applications. And the visual imagery is huge because we like that.
Right.
We like to see pictures. We love imagery. It lights up our brains in a way that text can't. And so we see the rise of things like Instagram, Vine, which is a 6-second long video app. Pinterest for mommies is huge.
Terrible.
I know you get sucked in and you can't get out. But it's the beautiful imagery. We're very attracted to that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that Instagram provides. The other thing that it offers for younger kids is that their parents aren't there.
Right.
So the thing that, people get worried about kids' use of social media, and one thing that I think we all need to remember is that throughout history, parents have been concerned about their teenagers and have been bothered by the things that they're doing.
Right.
So when I was a teenager, maybe it was, music choice or, whatever it was.
Right.
Thousands of years ago, adults were still bothered by what the next
Right.
generation was doing, and they were concerned about what that would mean for the future of civilization.
Right.
And we have quotes that show that are
Right.
quite fun to read. So, I think we need to not, that our concern about what teenagers are doing, we're focusing on social media, when in fact a lot of it is just parents don't like a lot of things teenagers do.
Right.
Okay? So, and teenagers act on social media like they do in real life
True.
in many ways. So the only thing that social media can offer teenagers that can amp up the bad behaviors is some level of anonymity
Yeah.
or removing them from the situation, so they're not getting the immediate interpersonal feedback that they would get in person.
Right. And I also, there's been a lot of talk about applications like Instagram and how that takes bullying to a completely different level, because there really are you could get away with it. There might not be any repercussions. And at the same time, it's sort of like it's being fed by other people. Let's talk about that a little bit. That's really concerning to me.
Okay. So the apps which are most likely to lead to bullying are those which allow the greatest amount of anonymity and distancing. So, so there are some that I absolutely would recommend parents not allow their kids to use.
What are those?
And those are the ones that are designed they're designed for the sole purpose of posting anonymously. So that would be Ask FM, that would be Yik Yak, Whisper, Secret, those sorts of things are designed for people to post whatever they feel like, and it has no connection to who they are. And we know the danger in that, because, I've always said all you have to do if you want to feel bad about humanity is read any story on any topic online and then go read the comment section.
I know.
Because
Awful.
people are really not their best selves
No.
when they're allowed to post anonymously.
And those are adults even.
Right, exactly. So I know last year, Huffington Post in the fall, they disabled anonymous commenting on stories. And when they did that, at the time they did that, I read that they had 40 people who were doing nothing but moderating comments, and that only about 25% of them were allowed to be posted, either
Wow.
because they're inappropriate, hateful, or spam.
Jeez.
And even so, you read the comments on Huffington Post stories, and some of them are just awful,
Right.
mean and spirited.
know.
So anytime someone can act anonymously, it's not a good thing.
Right.
It really isn't a good thing. So then you give that power to a 12-year-old with their lack of judgment skills.
Right.
And all of a sudden, not only do they have the power to post anonymously, they don't have the judgment skills to filter what they're posting, but now we've taken it to the level where it's potentially available to the whole world forever.
Forever.
Right. So that's the concern, is
Right.
that, when we were kids, 13-year-old kids were doing the same sorts of mean things. I think there's probably not a person who would want to repeat middle school.
No.
But when we left school, we could kind of leave that behind
Right.
and go home, and maybe it tamed down, and maybe
Right.
the next day you got over it. Maybe not, but
Right.
maybe you found someone new to sit with at lunch.
Right.
Whereas now, the first thing you see when kids are coming to the bus out of middle school
know.
is they pull out their phones,
Yep.
and it travels with them.
Yep.
And it's with them without stopping all night, all the
Right,
time,
right,
24/7.
right.
So, you can see why that would
There's no
make them afraid
Right.
to what they're going to see. And sometimes
Right.
you see kids, if there is a bullying situation, sort of compulsively checking, is something new, is something happening, is there a new attack? So, that it makes it more difficult for kids.
That's concerning. Now, so we talked about some of the apps we should stay away from. What are the sort of the best ones, or the most that allow parent supervision? Because parents should really be playing a role in their child's social media involvement.
Definitely, definitely. So my feeling is that if your child is using social media and if your child has any type of device that gets internet access, they are using social media. So if they have an iPod Touch, if they have like a reader that gets internet access, or a smartphone or the computer, it's less so the computer, it's more so the devices with kids. If they have any device like that, they are using some kinds of social media. You can probably feel pretty confident about that. So, my feeling is that if kids have access to social media, their parents should also be on there. And I know some parents are so concerned about that. They think, how can I keep up? I don't have time for that. I don't want to learn about that. That does not interest me at all. And I totally get that because it's like anything new, it's intimidating and the rules are different. And it's constantly changing, and their kids don't want them there anyway.
Exactly.
So, but I look at it kind of like driving. Okay, so when your teenager gets old enough to learn how to drive, we all sort of take on the mantle of responsibility to teach them how to drive. No one wants to do that. That is not fun at all. It is extremely time consuming. It's frightening.
Stressful.
It's stressful. It's, it's unpleasant on every level. But we don't just give our kids the keys and say, you know what, I can't even be a part of that. I can't understand that. I don't have time for that. Go teach yourself. We do invest ourselves in it. And because social media is not going away, it is a part of their lives for the rest of their life. And what they're doing from the minute they get on social media is potentially going to exist forever. We need to be there with them because we have to be able to offer that kind of guidance and feedback and, questioning.
Exactly.
What do you think about that? I saw what someone posted. How does that feel? That sort of thing that we do in other areas of parenting. I think it's just a part of our responsibility as a parent.
I think that's a good analogy with driving. And in one of your presentations that you did at the library a while ago, you mentioned that one of the ways that parents can perhaps, stay involved in this is to have one central location where all devices are plugged in overnight, that kids aren't taking their devices up to their rooms, and that privacy is monitored or limited, if you will. Yeah,
it's important to know where your kids are accessing their technology. So if they have their smartphone in their room overnight, I can guarantee you they're getting texts throughout the night. There are things coming through on Instagram. That's just the way it is. Teenagers don't sleep that well. So they wake up in the night. Anyone up? And, the phone glows and you pick it up and look. It's hard to resist.
I agree.
So, having a central location for that, I've had some parents tell me that the central location has to be their bedroom, the parents' bedroom. Because, their kids come down when they wake up in the night and check to see if anything happened while they were sleeping.
Oh, my.
So, you have to kind of work that out yourself. A lot of people ask about net nanny kind of internet filters. Which work for some people. I believe it's better to parent your way through social media through relationships than through additional technology. Because a lot of times kids are not using your Wi-Fi even to access. They're using their data plan. So it wouldn't have any impact on what they were doing anyway. So.
Well, it feels like as a parent you can't allow this to happen in a vacuum. That you really need to. It almost makes it harder to form that relationship with your child, or to have a relationship with your child at certain points of their social development, middle school and high school, because this is how they are socially developing. It's not how we socially develop.
Exactly.
So it's really something that parents probably have to work at.
It is. So they are digital natives and we are digital immigrants.
I love that. Yes.
So the way they interact with the world is very different from the way we interact with the world. So their primary form of interacting with the world is with a handheld computer with which they can have access to almost everyone they know and love at any time. And that feels perhaps uncomfortable for their parents. But that is how they are operating. And so if we want to have access to them, a great way to have access to them is through that device, and also being there in their
Right.
social media world.
Right.
And I found it's such a great tool for parenting. For me, I have a college student, high school student, a middle school student, and it's not. What's important for parents is that you're not there to stalk them,
Right.
or to creep them, as
Right.
as they might say. But you're there enjoying social media, enjoying what that offers, and there's a lot to enjoy. I mean, there's a lot. It really does open your world to such a great tool for building community and building relationships,
Right.
including with your own children.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot there to enjoy, and one of the best ways to connect with your kids is through social media, I think, of teenagers.
Right. Right. Let's talk about a couple of other social media apps that we haven't really gotten into.
Okay.
You talked about some of the bad sort of
Yes.
apps.
The anonymous posting.
Anonymous
apps.
posting is bad.
Stay away from those. Yes.
So, what are ones that you can get behind?
Well, I love Snapchat,
Ah,
which is so a surprise to me.
yeah.
When my daughter told me I should get a Snapchat, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's where you send a picture and it disappears in like 6 seconds, and it doesn't exist anymore." And I said, "I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Why would I want to do that?" And she said, "Just try it." And I did, and I love it because it's a great way to share these really small moments of your day with people that you care about. And again, when you build relationships, one of the best ways to build relationships is to share these pieces of your life. And Snapchat allows that in a way that feels that there's no pressure, because you're not trying to create the perfect selfie. You know that it's just intended to be a few seconds long,
Yes.
to be sent to a specific person or a couple of people. It's not going out to the world.
Right.
And it makes for a really lovely way to connect with people in a very short amount of time.
Well, and that to your point about leaving that forever footprint on the world, it doesn't leave that.
Okay.
'Cause now
So
I'm confused.
again, anything you post,
Okay.
you have to know that it is possible for it to be around to the entire world forever. Snapchat by design disappears, but the person can take a screenshot of the picture,
Oh, right.
right? Or, in theory, they could be showing it to a friend who is taking a picture of it,
Oh my gosh.
so you wouldn't be notified that a picture was taken of it. So this is, again, you need to make sure that your kids are aware of this.
Wow.
You've seen some kids get into trouble with sexting with
Yes.
Snapchat, thinking that I'm sending it to this one person, it's going to disappear in 10 seconds, it will never exist again, it's fine, when in
my.
fact it ends up being distributed far and wide.
Right.
So again, it's all about we know this is how it works.
Right.
However, remember, the whole world forever.
Right.
Anything could be that. So just, bear that in mind.
Right. Wow. It just kind of, just when you think you've got it figured out, you really don't.
Yeah.
You really don't.
It's just like life.
I know. It is, I guess. So I think that one of the, if not the most important takeaway, is for everyone to remember that you have whatever you put out there is there forever, somehow.
Potentially. Not necessarily, but
Okay.
potentially.
Potentially there forever.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start wrapping up a little bit, but I
Okay.
just want to touch base pretty, quickly on if you had 3 imperative messages that you needed to get across to parents or teachers or school administrators, whatever, safety of, people involved in police or whatever. What would those points be about social media? What are the top 3 things to know at all times?
Well, I would first of all just say that it's important that adults be on social media and be using it, because you cannot understand what it is without using it. And when you speak incorrectly of it, then you lose all credibility with kids. So I was listening to a presentation, and the presenter talked about Kick FM, which doesn't exist. There's Ask FM and there's Kick, but they're two different things. So if that person was actually using social media, they probably would be aware that those are two different things. But you know, you really have to be there. Kids can spot inauthenticity a mile away.
I know.
So, you know, my advice would be
dive in.
Dive in. You know, try it out and see where it takes you. And be engaged with your kids.
Okay.
It's important to be engaged with your kids, but not overly engaged with your kids on social media.
Always
it's sort of like when you're driving in the car and the kids are all talking, and the minute you interject a comment, everything stops. So the same thing happens on social media. Be there, but back away. Just be engaged if you're needed. You know, post things to your kids that will let them know that you're thinking about them and that you know them and understand them. And you know, just enjoy yourself, because again, your kids will see if you're getting social media when you're connecting with your own friends and getting a benefit out of it, and they'll stop thinking of your presence there as being there solely to follow up on them and stalk them and be hovering over them. And they'll get much more confident and comfortable and be less likely to hide what they're doing from you, which then opens the door for them to actually learn how to manage their social media appropriately.
Right. Good.
And grow into that.
Good advice. And hopefully that will be widespread. I know you've been out in the community doing some presentations at schools about social media, and have those been well attended?
Yes.
I think they have been.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a really important topic. So
it is, and it's not going away.
No.
Anyone who thinks that the way to manage social media is to wait till it is not a fad anymore is sorely mistaken, because it is not going away. This is a new thing that has fundamentally changed the world, and it's here to stay.
Right. And for us as parents, it's time to really embrace it and understand.
Yeah, and it's great.
What it is.
They'll love it.
Yeah. Great. Well, Carolyn, thank you so much for being
Thanks.
here with us today. I think this was a great conversation starter for a lot of people. It was very informative for me, and I hope that people take away some solid information. I think that they will. So
Great.
Thank
you. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on another edition of the Simsbury Woman. We'll see you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.